The free market is dead. So says Facebook co-founder Chris Hughes. In a Time magazine op-ed, he writes that today's massive shifts towards public investment is the most profound realignment in the American political economy in 4 decades, and that the market depends on the state now to create prosperity. Chris Hughes joins us. He's also, of course, the co-founder and co-chair of the Economic Security Project. Chris, it's good to see you. It's a fascinating op-ed. It'll be controversial in many circles. Make the case, and then maybe we can dive into some of the issues. But effectively, it appears that you're saying you believe that the market economy that we've known is no longer?
Well, I think the key point is that Americans, pretty much across party, education level, geography, are throwing out the idea that markets were ever free and are adopting a new framework that recognizes that markets need to be structured, regulated, that we need to have public investment to create the kind of prosperity that that the country needs to see. I mean, we see this after the Great Recession, after the coronavirus pandemic, after realignment both on the right and now it seems on the left. There's a consensus that when we just, the idea that if you can just let markets go, that they're sort of natural or beautiful or chaotic, it just hasn't worked. Government steps in every time that they come apart. And what's more is when government doesn't invest, doesn't provide things like childcare or infrastructure, it hobbles growth. It holds it back. And so it's the biggest kind of paradigm shift that I think we've seen in the better part of 4 decades, and I think it's going to last in American political discourse.
I know that there are viewers who are probably watching this right now, and they're saying this is an argument for socialism. This is an argument for statism. This is an argument for the U.S. turning into China. What are you suggesting?
I think that listen, what I'm trying to do is describe the broad common sense in America, which I think believes that capitalism can work, but that there are many varieties of capitalism. And the way that we've practiced capitalism for the past 40 years, it has not worked for most people. And that instead we need to have a kind of capitalism where markets are managed, where we have smart regulation, where we have public investment, where we have macroeconomic management. To be honest, I think a lot of people, you know, even in finance, corporate leaders, they agree with this too. I mean, we see a realignment amongst business leaders as well, because there's a general sense that we have underinvested in our economy for a very long time. So this is fundamentally an argument for competitive markets, but the kind of competitive markets that are actually fair, that can create the prosperity that that people want to see. And you see it in public polling on the big picture stuff, but also on small things, like on antitrust, for instance. There's a new majority on the left and the right that says government's got to step in, not to penalize any kind of big company for doing something wrong, but to create a fair market in the first place so that small businesses can flourish.
Chris, how do you reconcile this view with the success, for example, of the company you co-founded, Facebook, or the success of an Amazon, which is, I think it's inarguable to suggest, and I'll even take Facebook out, inarguable to suggest that Amazon's creation and success has, and I know there's lots of downsides of it too, but has I think we've proven during this crisis quite remarkable for our economy.
Well, I think entrepreneurship is the engine of the American economy, and there's no question about that. And we need to create a world where we can have a lot more Amazons. The problem is when you get these giants, whether it's Amazon or in other industries as well, agriculture, pharmaceuticals, elsewhere, the research shows that as they grow larger, they actually stifle innovation. You know, our productivity rates have flatlined in the United States. Research and development is significantly lower than it's been historically. The rate of small business starts, even before the pandemic began, was at a historic low. What you have is a few of these giant companies that have gotten so large that they're able to effectively stifle competition in the rest of the economy. So I don't think anybody, at least most people that I know, are not anti-innovation, anti-entrepreneurship. In fact, they're pro these things, and they want to see more of it. which is why you need a level playing field where government says.
But are those two things at odds? Meaning, can you have an entrepreneurial society where you're, quote, managing the market? And by the way, I agree with you in this respect. We've always managed the market one way or the other. You could argue that maybe the past couple of decades we've managed it less in certain ways than others. But the idea that we ever had a quote-unquote free market across the board, I know it's a nice turn phrase, but we've never truly had that either.
Well, I mean, I agree. It's a turn of phrase. It's an idea. It's a myth that sort of dominated the discourse. But, you know, we've had the SEC and the FTC doing regulatory work. We've had public investment. We've had a million different ways that we've been designing the market, even if we've been telling ourselves a different story. But to go back to your question, not only do I not think that they're at odds, I think to actually have a country where we have significant entrepreneurship, you got to have meaningful education so that people are ready to go. You got to have enough people who are not living in poverty or can barely make ends meet that they can even think about scraping together the funds to create a small business. And then you've got to have a world where, you know, Amazon and other big companies can't target them and underprice them in the marketplaces. You know, so I think that the way to create the kind of country that we want is to structure the market that rewards that kind of entrepreneurship and to be honest with ourselves that we need to do it.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.